Monolith Knives has built its reputation on handcrafted customs for over a decade, one knife at a time. But this marks a new chapter. The Apex line is their first batch-made series, small runs made to bring their craftsmanship to more cooks without compromise. Each Apex blade is forged from Takefu Aogami super steel, clad in stainless for extra protection and forged with a distal taper for balance and performance. The handle is a mix of brass and local Virginia walnut, connects to the blade through their new Monolith's Evolution handle system, designed for strength, precision, and longevity. It's a union of timeless materials and modern precision, and today we're taking a closer look at the Apex Bunka to see if Monolith's custom DNA truly carries through. Let's unbox the Apex Bunka and see what Monolith's first batch-made knife looks like up close. Make sure you continue watching to find out what other knife style Monolith is making available with the Apex Bunka. The knife came in a nice Monolith Knives branded cardboard box. Classy touch. As you'll hear in a second, the best way I can describe the initial contents of the box is the Easter bunny stuff. Continuing on with the theme of paper and cardboard, a nice thick cardstock business info card with a super cool cutout of the state of Virginia where they are located. Fighting both my OCD, but also wanting to make sure I didn't drop these paper accordions all over the shop, I went a little crazy digging around before finally closing the box and calling it a day. For what it's worth, cardboard box with the crinkle cut paper shred filler. Yes, I looked it up. There's no way in hell that this knife was going to get damaged. One more layer of paper to go through and lo and behold, the Apex line Bunka in all its glory. Starting with the walnut and brass pin saya. First thing I always do, the shake test. More on this later. Whether out of the factory or in transport, the saya arrived quite dry, which is no issue for me, as I added a few layers of mineral oil and beeswax and ta-da, absolutely gorgeous. I hadn't realized initially, but the saya pin is a screw-on. Never seen one like this before. Extremely well machined, felt sturdy in hand, but I do know that my professional chef buddies won't like the time it takes to unscrew this. With them, every second counts when you're on the line. Not to mention, if you lose this end piece, unlike most sayas where you can just take another saya pin and stick it in, you won't be so lucky here. The handle is octagonal and made of local walnut with a CNC machined brass ferrule. Super clean look. Contrary to the saya, the handle didn't appear dry, and that is because it is stabilized, and I'll presume the saya is not. Now the first thing I noticed when I unsheathed this Bunka was its heft. Not in a bad way if you like heavier knives. At 184 millimeters of blade length, and the exact same belly height as my Apex Ultra Mazaki 215mm Gyuto, it actually weighs 7 grams more at pretty much half the spine thickness of the Mazaki right out of the handle. That paints a picture for you. Where is most of the weight coming from, if you ask me? Likely the brass ferrule. The spine thickness on this Bunka tapers from 3mm above the heel to 2mm right at the K-tip junction, a 30% reduction in size. I absolutely love how you have an even amount of exposed etched core steel on both sides of the knife. The amount of and evenness of exposed core steel is something I'm gaining more and more in appreciation for when done right. The tip looks deadly sharp. Ask me how I know. More on this later. The knife also sports a super thick Kurouchi or 4-scale finish with vertical scalloped hollows to reduce drag. Beautifully stamped Monolith logo, all in all, a really good looking blade. Before we dive into the knife demo, know that I took to the internet, this time on my IG profile, to see what would people cut first with their Bunka. I basically tallied all the answers together, those that made sense of course, and this is what you'll see before you right now. First up, the red onion. I wanted to put at least one lateral cut into the onion to test for sharpness, drag, and geometry. Very clean cut. Then, the dice. Very smooth, nice gliding of the blade. Monolith definitely put a screaming sharp edge on this Bunka, and I'm super satisfied. Call me impressed. Very smooth, nice gliding. Next, decreasing in size but not in worth, the shallot. Same principle with the lateral cuts, this time more than one. As the ingredients get smaller, that sharp tip is really going to come in handy for precision cuts. Especially when, like on this Monolith Bunka, it has a really nice steep slope. A real joy to work with, nice small dice as if we were making risotto, and that shallot just got slayed. And then the garlic. Oh, the sweet, sweet garlic. This is where it all went downhill for me. Not only did I manage to score this awesome out of focus shot, but in the history of this channel, I cut myself for the first time. All was going well. It felt like I was faster than usual on the slices, on top of the world, chasing that one Michelin star, and then the poke. Hard to see, so let me zoom in and play it real slow for you. Once I stopped the bleeding and wiped the blood from the hollows of the knife, back to work for you, the people. So, subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. Now, enjoy an actual in-focus shot of the garlic. Next, we tested this Bunka on a carrot as per requested. Both a geometry wedging test as well as a small dice. Very nice geometry. I mean, there's something so satisfying about just closing your eyes, hearing that carrot get sliced. You know with 100% certainty there was no wedging and it was in fact a smooth cut. Since seeing Shibata Takayuki do this little micro brunoise technique, I had to do it again myself, followed by a more traditional brunoise. Using the tip here to square off the carrot is where I noticed there was some unwanted thickness behind that tip. Past the K-tip, that is, the actual tip, right at the junction of the K-tip. You can see it in the macro shots too. Progressively, I'm not going to lie, the rest of the carrot cut test got a little sloppy. The carrot was so turgid that when I cut into it, into little allumettes, I couldn't keep them together. Then I got the request to cut meat on IG. We don't eat a lot of red meat often in the house, but I always have something like guanciale, pancetta, or prosciutto in the fridge. So, prosciutto it was. Here I was severely disadvantaged by the length of the blade. Add to that the additional drag you get when cutting salumi from a tall blade, and definitely not a match made in heaven. You know what likely would have done a better job though? The Monolith Knives batch-made Apex Kyoto, also being released with this Bunka. That's right, the very first batch-made series being offered by Monolith also includes a Bunka or a 8.5 inch / 215mm Kyoto. This Bunka is insanely sharp, but that doesn't mean every situation suits it. Keep that in mind when choosing which knife to use for a task. For prosciutto, my go-to blade at home is anything long, thin, and with the belly height of, say, a traditional Yanagiba or Tsujihiki. I cut the cucumber mainly from a food release perspective. A highly moist vegetable is a good test here. When all else fails, dragging the tip across the cutting board will always work. This is why it's important to not have a tip be too fragile, but also thin. A delicate balance these knifesmiths must play. And lastly, the yellow potato test. Looking at sharpness, drag, and food suction. I even tried very quickly to rock the knife, and that was a mistake. The reason I did this is because this Bunka in terms of shape, to me, is a bit of a hybrid between a traditional Bunka and the Santoku, as you'll see here compared to 2 other Bunkas I own. The tip angle and the cutting edge flatness differ enough that I noticed it. Though obviously, as you can see here compared to my Santoku, not a Santoku. So, before we dive into who this knife is for, let's bulldoze through some of my nitpicks. None of these would turn me off from purchasing this knife, but all are still worthy for your ears. On the right side of the knife, there is a small indentation that looks like the tip was being re-profiled. Maybe just a miss where the K-tip was before the cut or profiled, I have no idea. The Kurouchi, though nice, deep, and rich in color, has some unattractive bubbles, for lack of a better word, in it, as if one put a coat of lacquer and overheated it. The brass bolster can scratch easily. Very niche nitpick, but I'd also reckon if you wear a ring on the same hand you hold a knife, just remove it to avoid scratching it. Brass is a relatively soft metal. Now, my biggest nitpick, the saya isn't a snug fit. This one though is a nitpick that has always bothered me. If you aren't going to provide a saya from the same place where the knife is being made that is snug, just include a blade guard like this one instead, which will provide the same amount of protection and is just a way better fit. Sayas, yes, are for transport, but I'm a big believer that when you add something to your kit, it shouldn't take away. If you add the saya to easily transport your knife with you at the cost of your blade edge moving around the saya and dulling it, it's not an even trade. I expect this when buying a generic saya, but not from one that comes from a knife shop built for the knife. That being said, for those that don't care a great deal like I do, nice value for money for having it included in the cost of the knife. A screw-on pin can be problematic for chefs as it is slow to remove, but again, very niche feedback. Now, who is this Monolith Knives batch-made Apex line Bunka for? Easy. Those that want to support a USA-made knife and the maker who has been around for over 10 years. So there's a lot of knowledge and experience there. It's also for those that like a Japanese style handle with more weight and heft to the knife akin to a Western knife. For those that love a K-tip, and I do. And also for those that want a super well-made knife at a production level which doesn't compromise on edge sharpness and has a 9 out of 10 build. What do you think of this Bunka? Let me know in the comment section below. This Bunka and their Apex line Gyoto should already be available on their website, so go check it out. Thanks for watching and see you in the next one. Huge.